Bryce said he wasn't here.
The meeting is called to order. How about that? My last meeting and I get a chance to chair.
One more meeting after this one.
Oh, I got one more? Oh. Okay, so this is, oh, look at that, I made it. Review, recognition of groups and/or individual visitors. Who are our visitors today?
And one more.
Where are you guys from?
Eric, do you want to introduce?
Here, your academy students?
Yeah.
If we're going to do
Oh,
anything
thank
with
you.
the replacing
Have one of
it has to be
those?
put on the agenda and stuff, so we're not going to do it at all.
There's one. And anybody else here?
I'm sorry, let's go back a sec. Can we have the Academy guests introduce themselves?
Oh, okay.
Do you guys want to stand up and tell the camera who you are and what you're doing here?
I'm Griffin Farina. I'm in 6th grade in Mr. Cummings' class. I'm Seth Corbeil, and I'm in 6th grade in Mr. Cummings' class.
I'm Jackie Palmer in 6th grade, and I'm in Mr. Cummings' class. We're presenting the green roof presentation.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thanks. And will members here like to introduce themselves?
So I'm Emily Murphy-Core, member of the community.
Would everybody speak up, please, because I'm hard of hearing?
Emily Murphy-Core.
I'm Andy Davis.
Chris
Our new
Mays.
school board members.
Chris Mays, reformer.
I'm just an observer, Georgia Morgan.
You want to say your name, George?
Terry Carter, District 3.
Okay. That in the back there? You guys are someone, are you, you
Michelle
folks?
Thompson, Standy, been coming to every school board meeting. It's nice to see people here, by the way.
Tamara Evanson, child at Academy School, interested in hearing about the STEP program.
Rachel Glickman, I'm 6th grade academic support teacher here at Academy, and I'm also, I believe, the newly elected town rep for District 1.
I'm Jessica Corbeil, and I'm Seth's mom.
Okay. Well, first on our agenda is, in fact, an Academy School presentation. And who will be leading that? You guys? One of you guys?
All right.
Okay. Well, you're up. You may begin.
First, we would like to thank you all for coming and listening to our presentation and accepting it so we can talk to you guys about the green roof presentation. So the way we got pulled into the whole green roof study was early in the year we were doing a science unit on climate change. And now climate change is being caused by the greenhouse effect, which is when gases from pollution get stuck in the atmosphere and trap heat inside of the Earth's atmosphere, making it warmer. And we've always had the greenhouse effect, just now that there's more pollution, the gases are getting thicker and trapping in more heat, which is increasing the Earth's temperature. And the difference between climate and weather is weather lasts for short periods of times, while climate lasts for longer periods of times. And climate change is causing more frequent extreme storms, and they're becoming more random.
Heat islands. So the dark colors absorb heat, and like concrete and roads and the tops of roofs. And they can be 4 to 5 degrees hotter than the surrounding area, like where all the trees are and everything. And that's one of the reasons why we should have a green roof.
Black roofs absorb 50% of the heat on the roof or the area what you were in. A green or white roof absorbs 30% of the heat. If you have a black roof, you should probably get an AC because it'll be hotter. But if you have a green roof, you don't really need AC because it'll make it cooler, prevent some of the heat.
And then here are some pictures that our teacher took of us doing experiments. And we made little buildings out of cardboard boxes and used sod from the playground outside to represent a green roof, and used black paper to represent a black tar roof. And we used heat lamps to represent the sun during the day, and we used the fan to represent the coolness at nighttime, and we used these 2 nifty thermometers that can tell 2 different temperatures at the same time, and so we were able to get some pretty clear results.
Okay, these are some of our data we got from our thing, that was called, our project. Over here on the right is the black roof temperature outside the black roof temperature outside and the black roof temperature inside. You can see that the blue is the black temperature outside. You can see that that's hotter than the inside. Over here, the X means the black temperature outside, the hexagon, black temperature inside, the star means green temperature inside, and the diamond, the green diamond, green temperature outside. You can see that the green temperature inside is cooler than all the other ones.
Noise. A green roof can eliminate sound because, like, on our roof, when it rains, it's really noisy, and our teacher has to speak up for all of us to hear him, and sometimes it hurts his throat. And these are all the recordings we took with this thing right here. So there are those.
And most of the time that Jackie was just presenting, her voice was at about 56 decibels, so right between a light rain and us all whispering.
And when our teacher is talking in the rain together is 85 decibels, and when we all yell in the classroom, it's 95 decibels, which is 10 decibels higher than when our teacher is talking so all of us can hear him and it's raining.
A green roof can help the environment with the insects, and it can provide the shelter for insects and multiple other species like birds and night crawlers. And if you really like researching type of animals, what you don't know, it would also be good, like a certain type of creature what you don't have in your research, you could find in your green roof.
And then another thing that we found out about is stormwater. And so a normal roof with stormwater, it just flows off the roof. But with a green roof, it absorbs the water and can hold it for longer periods of time. And in the summer, a green roof can hold 70 to 90% of storm water like a sponge.
Aesthetics. A green roof can have like flowers and very other beautiful plants, unlike a black roof, which is just black and boring and not fun.
And also the green roof would also be good if anyone likes like gardening, like planting flowers or like carrots, lettuce, that type of stuff. It would also be really good.
Then we wrote down some concerns that we thought people might have about the green roof. And so some people may say, well, would the green roof be too heavy for the roof? Well, our head custodian, Mr. Hill, told us that our roof can actually hold up to 2 million pounds. And that's about 60 pounds per square foot.
Concern number 2. Others may think that a green roof takes too long to put onto a roof, but it really doesn't take that long.
Concern 3. People might think that it would cost too much money, but in reality it actually costs about $10 per square foot.
And so there's a picture of our roof now, and the picture on the right is what we hope it could possibly look like in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
Did you guys create that whole slideshow also?
Yes.
Yes.
With the help of other students in our class too.
And I'm sorry, I just have one more question. Where or what sources did you get your information from about how long it would take to install and the cost? Do you remember?
The no.
We wrote letters to the school board earlier in the year, and all of our sources that we used are in the letters.
Okay, I'll look back on that. I remember the letters.
Did you look at things like how much a square foot of dirt weighs or a square foot of water to see how thick it could be on a 60 square foot or 60 pound per square foot roof?
No, I don't think we got that too deep to it.
Did you look into the possibility of growing things on the roof as possibly providing fruits and vegetables for the lunch program at your school?
Yeah.
When you measured things with sound, did you measure any ordinary things outside, like trucks or leaf blowers or motorcycles or anything like that?
No, we just did the things we had down.
We did the rain because whenever it rained, it used to be really loud, so we wanted to like make a chart on how loud it would be.
And we almost have to basically yell for all of us to hear each other.
Yeah, that seems stunning that your normal learning environment during a rainstorm is only 10 decibels quieter than a room full of 18 sixth graders yelling. That's really not a great situation.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we're
Thank
gonna
you.
look into this further. Thank you so much for your work and research.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay. Is there anything else final? Hold on. Okay, so next on our agenda is, what's the consent agenda?
All the warnings and the minutes.
Oh, okay.
Payroll authorizations.
So,
I move that we approve the agenda and minutes.
Second?
all those in favor of approving the agenda and minutes?
Aye.
3, so that passes. All right, committee reports, the Early Ed Policy Council, is there someone to report on that?
We had a policy council meeting last Wednesday night. We did not have a quorum, and the same was true for our January meeting. The policy council meeting alternates between Westminster and here in Brattleboro. Last week was Westminster, and it was also during a little bit of a snowstorm, so I think that might be why we didn't have a quorum. We, as you know, we have received approval and funding to transition from a March 1st fiscal year to a July 1st fiscal year, which aligns us with that of the school district. So we talked about that and celebrated that great success in Policy Council last week. Our next meeting is set for the 4th Wednesday of the month, so in 3 weeks. I think it's March 27th.
All right, any questions about that from anyone? All right, thank you, Deb. Is there anyone from the Energy Committee to report on anything?
No report?
I think that might be your committee, was it?
No.
That's yours. They never
No
meet,
report
though.
on that. All right, the WSESU Finance Committee, anything on that?
It hasn't met, it will be meeting tomorrow.
It's meeting tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay, so nothing new there. Executive Committee?
that's part of the finance, so.
That's part of the finance, so that's also tomorrow. And the WSESU Diversity Committee.
I'm sorry, I forgot to bring my notes from that meeting, but if I am recalling, I think that one of the things we talked about was revisiting our committee's goals and how we could provide a structure that allows more effective disseminating of the information that we do in our committee to the schools of the people who serve on the committee. And then we also talked some about Diversity Day planning and a little bit about the idea of the family literature nights with picture books and book giveaways to the families who attend. So that's something that I'm hoping principals and PTOs can take up and plan at their individual schools if that's something that the community wants to do.
Did the committee adopt goals for diversity?
The committee has
I heard
goals, and it was just kind of like how we do on our board. Every so often you would like relook at and
Right.
see, are these still right? Do we want to tweak it a bit? So we were kind of asked to look at them, think on it, and come back at the next meeting and see if anybody suggests changes or ways we could make it more
Maybe after you
explicit.
review them again, we can see them.
Yes, okay, I'll remember to bring that next time.
I'd like to make a comment. I think often about the diversity issues, and as I was thinking about it the other day, it occurred to me, and I made the connection between going back to our Declaration of Independence, which I think is at the very beginning is all men are created equal, not to get into the gender politics. But And it just seemed like, at the moment, as I was thinking about that, that what we call diversity today is just our modern incarnation of that same issue of still trying to accept that all people are equal. And so that's my observation on that.
Unfinished work.
Unfinished work. Okay, so are there any other comments or questions on what's going on there? Then we can move on to the administrative report and communications. Is that you, Kyle? Wow.
Yes, it's all of us. So, you want to start with this, Mark?
How about we just pass them all?
Sure.
Oh, do you want me to?
Oh, I got it.
We'll just pass
Before I jump into my report, I'd like to congratulate Eric Lee, Academy, and the presentation. I thought that was really wonderful. We actually have a committee at Green Street actively looking into how to create a rooftop garden. But I think it's a tremendous concept. There are actually rooftop parks in inner cities that are becoming more and more apparent and out there. So I think it's something for us to explore as a town, for sure.
Yeah, could you please share the findings of that committee?
I will.
They come to us on?
Yeah, we have an engineer and an architect on the committee, so we're moving along. We've had about 3 meetings, but absolutely will once we get some more details. On my report, I think we'll start with student programming section. We have a group of 8 students heading up to Burlington, Vermont on March 23rd for a Destination Imagination Tournament. This will be the 3rd consecutive year that we've sent a team up there. So that's a group of students in grades K through 4th grade represented. We have a terrific garden coordinator, Tara Gordon, who's been working with our school garden. And over the winter, she's developed gardens in the classrooms, growing herbs. And we're currently donating those herbs to a local restaurant, Yala, downtown. So I think that's kind of cool. School-wide events, we're just wrapping up winter sports. Completed that program, very successful. You can see there's a number of field trips lined up for March. 2 upcoming events that I'd like to really emphasize, and if you could come to them, that would be great. On March 14th, we'll have a 9 a.m. show and a 6 p.m. show of the Gruffalo, and that's our junior drama club. And on March 28th and 29th, we'll have 6 p.m. performances of our school musical Shrek. So I think those would be 2 great opportunities to come out to see what the kids have been working on. I think the Shrek musical is really going to knock it out of the park. They were in yesterday for a couple of hours rehearsing, and really high quality stuff coming out of that program. Let's see. Oh, yes, I'd like to note on the noteworthy section, our community outreach worker, Amy Johnston, has been working with Groundworks Collaborative in the food bank, and I'm excited to say that we have now established our own food pantry at the school. So we have a relationship with the food bank now, where we can access the food at the food bank, and then we have storage for non-perishables at the school, so we're able to provide food and resources for families who need that. Going into February break, we supplied bags of food for 8 families. But now, with our relationship with the collaborative and the food bank, that's something we'll be able to do on a monthly basis. So very excited about that. And then lastly, there's a Glasstastic program down at the Brattleboro Museum. Throughout the beginning of the year, kids were able to design animals or figurines, and then local glass blowers choose certain designs to then replicate. So we have 3 students who will be, their designs will be on display at the museum, and that's open this weekend through June. So that'd be a great thing to check out. I think there's probably other student designs down there as well from our other schools. And then Tulip Trot is coming. We'll be hearing a lot about that in the future.
Thanks, Mark. Oak Grove. So we'll go right down to student programming as well, like Mark. And our Language and Culture Club is a new after-school program. It's being run by a couple of parent volunteers. And they're bringing in, every week is a different focus. Today was on Peru. So have guest speakers and people from the community that are actually coming in and working with students in K-3 for that class. Robotics is still happening, and that's ongoing on Monday afternoons. And Baton and other activities on Tuesdays. That again is something new. Our kindergarten paraeducator is a twirler. She was actually in the Windham County Variety Show, I think, is that, whatever it's called, but it was a Windham County Variety Show, and so she's now bringing those skills to the students, and she had 14 students, and it was quite fascinating. It was fun to watch. Our winter sports is finally over. We had our last Mount Snow ski trip last Thursday, so that is done. We have, what's not on your report is, I just want to bring your attention to 2 grants that we've recently applied for. One is through the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Vermont, the Wellness and Physical Activity Grant. We applied for $500 towards starting a disc golf club at the school. One of our teachers is very much into disc golf, and so we're got that sent in, and we'll see how that goes. The other is a $1,000 Vermont Community Garden Network to improve our garden, looking at adding more perennials. We have some Asian pear trees that have been donated that will be planted this spring. Also creating more of an educational opportunity space near the garden, so having like an outdoor weatherproof whiteboard outside, as well as picnic tables and stuff, so classes can bring students and have a little bit of a teaching center around the garden space. So we're hoping that's a collaborative effort with Food Connects, our Brattleboro Co-op, and they're all part of our Farm to School team. So we all we're keeping our fingers crossed. That just got submitted not too long ago. And the Harlem Rockets, I don't know if they're coming to all of our schools, but I'll just put a plug in. It's a fundraiser for Brattleboro town, and I am playing. So I don't play basketball. Yeah. I don't remember. No. It's Friday night, March 15th. I think a week from Friday, something like that.
Sweet.
So, yeah, I really don't play, but they said that I don't have to. So hopefully they mean that. And our PTO has been very, very busy. February is a very busy time for them. We have our big Harris Hill fundraiser, which was, it just gets better and better every year. We get better at figuring out how to make, made breakfast sandwiches this year to our grilled cheese sandwiches, so it's a huge hit. And we also did a Dine for the Cause at 99 restaurants, so thank you for them. And yeah.
Jerry, in all seriousness, what time is the assembly with the Harlem Rockets? Really? We have a couple players coming to the school
at Oak Grove at 1 o'clock on that day. But the big game or whatever is at the high school at 6:30.
6:30.
6:30,
Okay.
March 15th.
Thank you.
All right. Before we go down to programming, I just wanted to draw your attention to the new entries in the moved section briefly, because it's an example of our transiency in Brattleboro town. We had 3 students move in and 3 move out in the month of February, all lower grades. But I just, when I looked at it on this paper, it just became even more evident to me that it's very fluid how kids come and go. If you flip over to the next page, we've had a couple of new after-school programs that have had great success. 2 of them are outdoors on our grounds, the Naturalist and Wilderness Club and the Outdoor Adventure Club. So they're trekking, they're hiking in the woods, they're learning kind of survival naturalist skills. And one of those is led by some Antioch interns. So that's been really successful, and we've also started a chess club and a cards club, which is sort of, Rachel helps with it. It's a mix of all different types of cards and games that kids collect, and they come and they play. And that's been a really nice thing for a lot of kids who don't necessarily want to do a physical activity, but they want to interact and have an after-school program opportunity. So we'll continue that. That was started by a 6th grader, and that will probably continue even after he leaves. So it's been kind of a nice thing. We enjoyed a visit from the Vernon Tornadoes jump rope team in early February. And we also, this is a big month, February and March, for breakfast times. We have literacy breakfasts with all the classrooms, which is funded through Title I. So parents are invited to come. Each child gets a new book, and they can have breakfast and share some of the work they've done in their classrooms. And we have family breakfasts coming up, which are down in the parent and community events, the dates and times for each grade level. And we're doing 3 different countries as themes for foods. So we've got Bali, Russia, and Spain on the menu for various weeks, so you can pick which food you're most interested in sampling and come on over. Let's see, this Friday, our 4th graders will be taking the NAEP test, which is a big all-consuming day. It's been organized by our teachers. We are doing a family bingo night, which will be sort of involved with the Month of the Young Child activities in early April. And we have the Harlem Rockets coming too. One other thing that came across, I got a random phone call from someone I didn't know about this NED performance, and so I looked it up and we booked it. NED stands for Never Give Up, Encourage Others, and Do Your Best. This is a world-renowned show that we have the opportunity to have come for free, and they talk about persistence and growth mindset, which has been a big theme through Andy Patchouli over the years, and it sort of seemed serendipitous that they called to come. So we're excited to see that show on the 27th as well. We had 25 girls show up for Girls on the Run yesterday, or Monday, and I think 2 more are being added, so we'll have a large group to run, which is exciting. Down under facility updates, we've got some capital plan work beginning. We're meeting with some architects and engineers about the White House replacement and how we can get some privacy in our special education environment as well. So you can stay tuned for more details about that as we get them. A couple other exciting things under teacher PD. Usually this is the section we don't have a lot because it happens very predictably throughout the year on our PD days, but Allie West, our food coordinator, is teaching healthy cooking classes to our staff. So we have 6 sessions that she's broken down into different recipes through a VHI grant that Rachel also wrote. So that's been a huge success. We have, Rachel, how many people per class?
Maybe 15, 16 people come to the first 2 classes, so Yeah, it's been great. It's been a great team building. Had a lot of fun.
So it's fun in the kitchen. We are working with Julianne Egan coming up to talk about student-led conferences, which is a district-level initiative coming down the line. We're also hard at work to continue to develop our universal expectations, which would be school-wide expectations for behavior in our school. And John, do you want to talk just briefly about the restorative justice team?
Sure. So one initiative that we've really sort of dove into a lot this year at Academy is exploring restorative practices as a school-wide orientation to a discipline system. It's a passion of mine as an educator and just as a way to restructure our approach to challenging behavior to be more community-oriented rather than discipline-focused. And so we've spent a lot of time. There's been a large group of sort of committed educators that have been volunteering their time to research different restorative practices that are happening in elementary schools around the state. We've connected pretty deeply with one school in Burlington that has really spent a number of years engaging in restorative work. And we've engaged with literature and research and starting to sort of conceptualize what that can look like at Academy. And so it's pretty exciting. And then we recently met with Lyle and representatives from central office and the restorative justice coordinator at the high school, Mike Sostek, and are working on developing an application with the Vermont Agency of Ed for a grant to continue our work next year and to develop that alternative approach to discipline.
I'll just add on, we're looking at Academy becoming a model school because of the work that they've done. Putney Central School this year has also been spending a lot of their time, teachers in professional learning communities really looking at restorative practices. And as John just said, Mike Sostak at the high school, who is the restorative coordinator for the EU6 complex, is helping write a grant. I think you knew about that grant and sent it out. Julianne sent it out. I sent it out. When we did some more research on the grant, we were told we'd have a better chance of getting the grant if we work as a full supervisory union. So the work that John and the team at Academy has done is going to be benefiting all of us as we put that grant in. Thank you.
So thank you to John for spearheading that committee and Lyle for your help too. And the last thing, Jerry came to a group of Academy teachers, and I went up to Windsor on Monday and had a workshop about scheduling in accordance to the district management group study that came out, which has to do with how to provide the most academic support by the most certified teachers. And so we're really working on, John's also been really heavily working on a committee all year to design next year's schedule, to try to really make it the most efficient and effective as we can. So it was a nice time to collaborate. Shelley came to collaborate with others from our district and talk about special ed, academic support, and classroom teaching and how it all, and specials, and how it can all really fit together.
Kelly, what's that called? That group is that?
The district management group put out a study. If you Google DMG study.
I wanted to ask you, John, if you could give an example. I have an idea of restorative justice from outside of the school community, but what would be an example of an alternative response to a situation through that lens?
Well, I'll give you a real life example. So we have recently we had an example of a student who consistently was being referred to me from a behavior standpoint for physical contact with other students that was unwelcomed by the other students. And a more traditional model of discipline would have led to consequences handed down by administration. that are traditionally unrelated to the act itself. And so in a more restorative approach, what was done was we held what's called a restorative circle of sorts. And so we had the student identify some peers that might be allies and some peers that have been impacted by that behavior. And we had a circle, and we talked, and it was beautiful. And it's an opportunity to reflect on what has happened, make plans going forward, chance to engage other members of our community and peers in helping address that behavior. Then it in turn shows it's actually more meaningful in changing behavior. Because the purpose of a discipline system ultimately is to change behavior. And I think what we see is sometimes a more traditional discipline approach doesn't actually change behavior. And I found that in engaging in more conversation like that and more community accountability actually has more potential to change behavior.
The peer component, I think, could be really powerful rather than the usual imbalance of power.
Yeah, exactly.
Between the teacher and the person in trouble.
Exactly. Yeah, that was something that was shared with us from this school in particular in Burlington that we've connected with, is the strategy of engaging peers in creating almost sort of informal contracts to help change behavior.
Thank you, that's inspiring.
Yeah.
The Early Education Services monthly reports for January went out to all of you this morning electronically, so you should have those. As I mentioned earlier, we have received our funds to bridge over to a new fiscal year, which is exciting. We also have received our dose and duration funding request, which was around $106,000. Basically, it was money made available to all the Head Start programs in the country to extend their Head Start Day. So Head Start was started back in 1965 as a half-day model, and it's been funded that way for all of these years. Later, in the 90s, when Early Head Start came out, the funding was there for the full day. So at EES, we have financed this in a package that is a blend of child development division funds, or what was commonly known as child care subsidy fees, and the Head Start funds to make a full day. The dose and duration funds that we were eligible to apply for, basically, they gave us a percentage of our total funded enrollment, and that percentage was the number of students we have at Canal Street. So we focus on Canal Street, and those funds will help to actually bridge a gap that we are seeing with our drop in our CDD financial assistance or subsidy funds that are matched with parent copays, and we're not able to recoup those copays from the parents. So this basically fills the gap. We do provide Head Start for the entire day, so it just helps. We were hoping that it could actually be used for other things, but it's filling the gap, so we're excited about that. Looking ahead, there are a couple of events. On April 27th, as part of the Month of the Young Child, we will be hosting another Family Fun Day, which is being held at Bird Street on a Saturday with lots of different venues, or not venues, but lots of different workshops for families to attend with their children. We'll have, last year we had the Annies who did an ongoing puppet show. We had a group who came in with Falcon, or the New England, Spins, the folks from Woodstock area who brought in birds of prey and other animals. We'll have books for families. We have bag lunches, and staff also come together and do things like face painting and that kind of thing. So put that on your calendars. The other. Okay. Thank you, Mariah. So a couple of things. Let me finish with Head Start, and then I'll shift to Parent Child Center. We are still experiencing a staffing shortage. We have always enrolled employed our classrooms with a ratio of 3 teachers to no more than 15 students. In the early Head Start world, that's 3 teachers for 8 students, and now we have a 3 to 12 ratio in all of our Head Start classrooms because of the significant needs of our students. And that is 1 teacher more than what is required by licensing standards and by even Head Start standards. But we need all 3 teachers in the classroom with our students. And we've operated now for some time without having all of those positions filled, and with no end in sight. And as I've shared many times, this is a national crisis. We're not alone. And we're looking ahead and knowing that some staff are not going to be renewing their contracts because they're moving on to moving out of the area or getting married and staying home and raising children and all kinds of things. And we're anticipating that we may have some challenges in finding and having enough staff, so that we may again be facing something like we did a couple of years ago, where we actually had to close a classroom because we did not have enough teachers. So we're starting to do some brainstorming about that again. We are fully enrolled, the need is there. And so one of the ideas that we're entertaining is partnering again with some of our folks in the community. And I wonder if you're also having the same kind of experience, but reaching out to some community partners. And with the use or with the implementation of Act 166, it has come with some higher expectations. And so we would be looking for those partners who receive Act 166, because those higher expectations match what Head Start has asked for right along. So some of the concerns that we've had in the past, not in the case of Westby, we're hoping not be there. And so that we might begin to forge some partnerships again. So that's one of the ideas that's sort of percolating. Now to shift a little bit, Early Education Services is also a designated parent-child center in Vermont. There are 15 designated PCCs in Vermont. And we have primarily been level funded for 20 years. We had a small bump a couple of years ago. And we have been lobbying with a lobbyist to get, we're looking for $8 million increase over 3 years, this year being $1.5 million. And so we've been working hard on that with our legislators. And part of what our parent-child centers do is that we subcontract with the state reach-up program. And we have here at EES, we have 2 reach-up workers who are employees of EES, who work primarily with the young parents who are looking to either get training or become employed and need childcare, and lo and behold, we have it all. So the idea is that we case manage those young parents and help them by providing childcare, sort of a one-stop shop for them. And that those relationships with the state reach-up program through the Department of Department of Economic Services, we subcontract, and so our employees are not paid the same salary that the state reach-up workers get at the Department of Economic Services. So they're getting a good bang for their buck. And we are able to actually have longer standing relationships with our participants, even if they are not, if they get kind of put in a holding pattern because they're not meeting the requirements, because life happens, we still maintain those relationships and we're able to get them back into the program. So the governor's budget is proposing to cut all of those positions because, well, the rationale was that there's lower number of cases that are, there's been a drop in case participation. And what has come out is that statement is not true, and the budget that was put forward to the House is actually not correct. And so we did a lot of lobbying, and we were able to convince our reps that we needed to keep the contract and have the 1.5 million, but now, because the budget is not correct, it's up in the air. And so the next hope is that the budget will be fixed or corrected, and then it will go to the Senate. So in the next couple of weeks, they're on break right now, recess. We're reaching out to our senators and inviting them into our centers to have a conversation with them. So I've already reached out to Jeanette White, and my colleague in Springfield has reached out to Senator Boleyn, and we'll be doing that together because both senators cover our territories. So there's a chance that there may be a loss come July 1st of these services, but we lobby hard, and we have some very valid reasons for keeping the services under the umbrella of our parent-child center piece of early ed services. And lastly, I'll take it to a high note. In April, the New England Head Start Regional Association will be hosting the regional conference in Burlington. Vermont is sponsoring it. We rotate states. And I have about 8 folks from the ES who will be attending that conference the first week in April, so that's pretty exciting.
Are there any questions on any of that? I have one, Deb. Is the shortage of staff tied in a way to the wages that you have for early ed?
Well, that's certainly one of the reasons.
And the second question, then a follow-up, will that be ameliorated in any way if early ed is absorbed into the school, into the system, and staff are treated as regular teachers and are on the same contracts?
In order for that to happen, we're already employees of the district. But we are sort of a sub-unit or a separate unit because all of our funding comes, or most of our funding comes from the federal government directly for Head Start and Early Head Start. And so that's the money we have to work with, along with these other pots of money that I speak about. And the support that we get by being part of the school district is that we have the majority of our Head Start students are at Canal Street. So we have that building rent-free, although it's a money pit and we put a lot of money into maintaining it. We get the services of the fiscal office, and so all of the bookkeeping and all the accounting, although we have our own department, it's in tandem and aligned with the school district, so we also get the benefit of payroll, and we get the same benefit package that all of the school district employees get. And so the only way for that to happen would be for our EES employees to actually be embedded in the school budget, and the taxpayers would pay higher salary, the difference, because there's no money that we're getting that would bring those salaries up.
That money that comes from the federal government, the Head Start money, does that come through the state or directly to?
It comes directly from the federal.
And have you ever heard of that money being paid to a school district rather than?
Well, it actually is paid to the school district. You are the grantee.
Aha.
And then it funnels through you to us.
Okay.
And yes, about 1/3 of the Head Start programs in the country are part of a school district.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Is there anything else? All righty.
I'll be real quick, sorry. Mark and I may have a quick executive session item at the end, just a family situation that we want to make sure that you are aware of.
Oh.
And the other thing, next week there are the Brattleboro first responders, so the police department, the fire department, rescue, had organized a school safety training for 2 days, so many administrators throughout WSESU are going to be attending that. And then in April, at our WSESU leadership meeting, Chief Lucasi has put together some scenarios, school safety scenarios, and first responders will be working with us on that as well. So we like to make sure that we count on the first responders as they are updated on best practices in school safety. So we'll be doing that. And lastly, on March 13th, there's a supervisory union meeting. The main point of that meeting is we need to move those policies. We started them in December, and we have to continue to update those and move them on. With Jill not being on the board anymore, we will need one other person to do it. So Dave will do that. Okay, that's it.
Alrighty, so that takes us to noteworthy accomplishments.
That's what we just
Oh, that's what we just did?
Yeah. That was the administrative reports.
Oh, that was the administrative reports. Alrighty, so now we are, is there, I see other under unfinished business.
So
Was there anything there?
we had invited the pre-K providers to us, and I thought that we were going to follow up on that discussion. One of the things that we had discussed was possibly having a pre-K provider rep join us formally, but what we could do is put that on an upcoming agenda if we wanted to do that. I feel like I don't want to let that go.
Okay.
Is there,
thank
the
you.
pre-K providers, is there like a formal association of that? Or is it just sort of, like, I guess I'm asking this to Mariah?
All of the partners would be
Right,
involved.
I mean, do you guys have like a board, or like, do you get together and could you like elect someone to be the representative?
We have talked about who would be interested in it, but there isn't like a formal process that we would go through. It would be like, who wants to go?
Okay.
So can we put that on another agenda?
Yeah,
so that we
thanks
can
for remembering
formally-
that, I'd forgotten that.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Can you make a note of that,
Yes.
Kelsey, there, for our next meeting? Alrighty, so now we are new business. STEP program discussion. I think before I want to start this, I don't know, we have about an hour left. And are there things on here that we absolutely must get to?
We have to get to the STEP
Oh.
program discussion.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because there's people here to talk about that, including
Okay.
Shelley and some
That's why
parents.
it's there.
Oh, okay, all right, then let's go into that.
So I'll introduce Shelley. Shelley is the elementary special ed director, I believe that's your title. Shelley has worked with us for about 20 years. Her specialty is behavior and different behavior, done a lot of research on different behavior programs and approaches to behavior, and we've done some STEP and behavior presentations before, so I'll turn it over to you and see where we go with this one.
Shelley, you also initiated the program, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you for inviting me, and hello
Sorry,
to everybody. So as Lyle said, I'm Shelley Wilson. I'm the Assistant Special Ed Director for our district. This is just a very short one-pager. As Lyle mentioned, I think I've presented to all the school boards actually in our district about different behavior supports and resources available to kiddos in the district. And so this, I was going to try to put it up there. I don't have the right adapter, so I apologize for that. My computer's too new, I guess. So anyway, so this is just a quick, with the understanding not to do a PowerPoint, but just a review of behavioral supports in general. So I will maybe breeze through this kind of quickly, and then Robin, if there's particular questions or points of discussion, we can go from there. So I presented to this board about a year ago, I think it was last January, with an overview with my colleague Greg Stoller of behavioral supports available in Brattleboro town, starting with multi-tiered systems of support. otherwise known as MTSS. And so that's defined as the practice of providing high-quality instruction and interventions matched to student need, monitoring that progress frequently to make decisions about changes in instruction or goals, and applying response data to important educational decisions. And there's a couple links there. Vermont, the state of Vermont is actually in the process of updating our MTSS field guide, which is due to be out, I think, sometime this fall. But that is a link to the older guide. Kelly mentioned on Monday that Jerry and herself and I and some other folks from Academy and other schools around the district went to a state level training that was put on by the Agency of Education via the district management group, which we'll be talking about a lot in the next few years, I imagine, otherwise known as the DMG report. And that was a report that was put out. It was contracted by the Vermont legislature with the DMG group, I believe they're out of Massachusetts, in order to do a study on how Vermont as a state can better support struggling students. And that's students who struggle academically and behaviorally. So MTSS as a framework is pretty heavily embedded in the recommendations in that report, which again we'll be talking about. It's also the basis of I don't want to say the basis, but it's an impetus for some changes that are coming up in the very near future for special education funding, some which have some pretty significant implications for us in our district. So there's MTSS is the framework that we use here. I think we've been doing it pretty full bore since 2011 is when we really started full implementation of those systems. Next is PBIS, which stands for Positive Behavior Interventions and Support. So PBIS is an implementation framework that maximizes the selection and use of evidence-based prevention and intervention practices, along a multi-tiered continuum that supports the academic, social, emotional, and behavioral competence of all students. MTSS and PBIS, although different, are very closely related. The triangles are probably not new to many of you on the board. We've talked about them, seen them before. This is a nice visual that I got from a school district out west. The basic tenets of PBIS, PBIS is a nationwide initiative. I've linked both of those resources there, the national PBIS website and PBIS Vermont. I'm trying to think of the amount of schools. I mean, there's a plethora of schools in Vermont that employ PBIS as their behavior framework strategy. And, it's regarded as an evidence-based practice. And there's a lot of resources at the state level every year. There's an institute at the end of June called the BEST Institute, where teams from our district and others across the state go to get tuned up on their school's PBIS systems. I know Mark usually brings a team to the New England conference, and several of the schools have been chosen as PBIS exemplar schools in our district. I know Oak Grove most recently, Green Street a few years before that. So the graphic just outlines what the descriptions are of what we call the tiers. You'll hear that language a lot when talking about behavior as well sometimes. Tier 1, school-wide interventions, appropriate and effective for around 80% of students, which is most students. At Tier 2, some students may need a higher level of behavior intervention, something a little more specialized, individualized. And then at the very tippy top of the triangle are the Tier 3 interventions, and for students that have more intensive social, emotional, and behavioral needs. To the right there are of examples of what that looks like in real time in practice in the schools. And it's interesting that John brought up the restorative justice piece, because that's listed here on this graphic, and I think that's an exciting thing to think about incorporating into these, into the model moving forward. Kelly talked about how here at Academy, they have the group working on the universal behavior expectations. And I won't read these to you. This is not an exhaustive list. There's many sorts of practices and supports we give students in schools that could fit in this right-handed list as well. So STEP stands for Supportive Teams for Educational Progress, and STEP is, I phrased it as a unique blueprint for providing Tier 3 behavior, social, and emotional interventions. And whenever I talk about this, Jerry, at a meeting a couple years ago, I always say this, but you forget, coined the term blueprint, and I just love the way that it sounds, because within a PBIS framework, Tier 3 behavior interventions, which are, highly individualized, positive behavior support plans for students, usually coupled with, maybe outside wraparound supports in the community, a high level of support in a school. Those are not, this isn't meant to be critical, but in the PBIS trainings, that is, a lot of times it's just conduct functional behavior assessments and create behavior support plans, which is a little open-ended. And so what evolved through, I won't explain how the evolution of STEP, but what ended up evolving was putting together this, system of professionals that could do that work in schools. And so that's why I like to call it a blueprint. It's really a blueprint for how to do Tier 3 interventions within that MTSS or PBIS framework. STEP is a service, not a program. I definitely said STEP program for the first 4 or 5 years that we did it, but I like to think of it as a service. It's primarily a service for special education students, but at times can also, be used within a school to do some troubleshooting for kiddos who need that intensive level of support. There's the years of implementation at the Brattleboro Town Schools. Staffing in a STEP model. In the 3 town schools, they are all staffed with a behavior interventionist, and all of the behavior interventionists we have right now are credentialed BCBAs, which stands for Board Certified Behavior Analyst. What I think is kind of special about the way that we provide behavior analytics services is that our BCBAs are also how do I put this? They are, I try to think of it as doing applied behavior analysis in the real world or in school settings. Like these aren't treatment, we don't work in a treatment facility per se. Our behavior analysts started off as special educators, as licensed mental health workers. They have additional backgrounds, which I think is crucial and probably I consider totally necessary to do behavior analytic work in a school, because you also have that alternative perspective. The second staff member is an intensive case manager, and that is a special education teacher with usually a higher level of training and or level of skill in working with kiddos with challenging behavior and social emotional needs. And then we also have STEP paraeducators, and many of them, if not all of them in Brattleboro Town except for some new hires, have obtained a registered behavior technician credential, which is really, I think that's been an exciting innovation for our para-educators to support them in working with kiddos with challenging behavior. And so that's been a nice development as well. So the main goal of STEP is really to support inclusion in general ed to the greatest extent possible. And I want to be really clear, special education is, one of the tenets is about least restrictive environment. And so the general education environment is ideally where we start, but it's not always the most appropriate place for a child. And so we are tasked with providing a continuum of supports to support kiddos who need something different. Let's see, to the back. One of the unique aspects of STEP, sorry, I gotta take a drink. All this talking. As a model is, and this is one of the things that, as Lyle mentioned, I've worked in this district closing in on 20 years now, and my previous experience was working in a self-contained program, and I think that when I worked in, and that program was geared for kiddos with emotional challenges. One of the challenges that I think that I experienced firsthand was the challenge of a consultant model, which is we hire an expert, usually a BCBA. We did work with a school psychologist at one point. They would come in, they would talk with us about how to help, with certain kiddos, behavior plans, troubleshoot, but then they would leave and we wouldn't see them for a month or maybe longer. And it really left a gap in continuity of service for the kids. And so what I think having the behavior folks and the intensive case managers in the school, I think an advantage, and I hope the teachers would agree, is that it offers more support and it offers it faster. And so teachers have the opportunity to troubleshoot with the experts in real time. An anecdote I used to love to share was when I was working here at Academy School in STEP, it was not at all uncommon for teachers to come down during their lunch breaks or while kids went to a special, just to do a quick check-in. Hey, I tried this, I tried X, Y, and Z. X and Y really didn't work, so what are we gonna do now? So I think that is, I like to think about it as a good advantage. The responsibilities, again, I don't have to read all these to you and for you, but the behavior interventionists, really, their job is to help create positive behavior support plans for students to support their inclusion in the general environment. They're responsible for the supervision and training of the paras. And really, for both professionals in STEP, the goal is really about teacher coaching. And it's really about helping classroom teachers to be inclusive with their classroom management practices and to keep kids integrated. And then, lastly, well, I'll talk about academic supports real quick. The intensive case manager, which was a position I did here at Academy, really coupled with that teacher consultation around behavior, I would take an educated guess that a high degree of behavior problems, as we think about them in schools, have to do with frustration and lack of understanding. And a lot of that is connected to curriculum, things being too hard or not accessible or perceived to be too hard. So the intensive case manager is really tasked with working with kiddos and teachers and families and teams around making that curriculum accessible to the student. And then just I brought this piece of data last year. Since the implementation of these frameworks, I did some data going back to 2009. And for students on IEPs in Bratttown, the out-of-district placement has decreased by about 68% since the implementation of these supports. And again, that in my mind is absolutely not a measure of success, but for kiddos who previously where access was an issue, they're able to stay more integrated with their peers. So I just talked a lot.
Nice job.
Yeah, thank you.
Questions?
And you guys,
or comments?
obviously, as the principals, I'm
From
sure
anybody?
have some thoughts.
Yes. I would like to hear, I guess, about what kind of, what is the process and what kind of accountability is there when STEP is not working? I want to start off by saying that I have the utmost respect for everyone involved in this process. I know that it can be very challenging working with kids who have behavior issues. From personal experience, I know that, and I can only imagine when it's a whole school population that you're looking at. But I have become concerned from hearing from a number of parents about their experiences where it wasn't helping the child become more included in the classroom as is the goal. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah.
What happens then?
I can certainly try. I think that, I guess I would say, as with any issue in a school, whether it's academic or behavioral, and being a special educator, I also deal with a lot of academic challenges as well. I would, not every intervention is going to be effective with every kid all the time. So I think that once a student displays a level of need that is so great that they need an individual, that they need a paraprofessional to be with them, all or most of the time. They need a positive behavior support plan with, tons of reinforcement and or sensory breaks or other, once we reach that level, we have to try things, and not all the things we try work, all of the time. So I think that it's, I like to think that when I was doing the direct work, I feel that the greatest chance that we had of creating plans for kids was when everybody was on the same page, meaning families, teachers, community partners. Oftentimes, the intensive case managers, part of their role is to really try to be a coordinator of supports for kiddos. I frequently, I used to, have daily calls with case managers from HCRS, around certain kids and their plans, making sure that we're trying to get to the whole, the whole child approach as much as possible.
And I know that you mentioned that most of the kids who are receiving these Tier 3 supports are on IEPs, but I'm wondering if beyond a learning disability, which I think that's what's governed by an IEP, right?
Depends. Could be emotional also.
Emotional as well?
Yep. Sure.
Okay, because I would just assume that most children who have that much struggles with behavior have some kind of emotional neuro difference as well. And I know that for some of the really common ones like ADHD, autism, that the emotional resilience of the child is much lower than neurotypical peers. So I think that one common thread between a lot of the stories that people have told me was that the emotional experience of their child being continually referred out of the classroom to STEP, and then having I'm just not sure that it's always received in the spirit that it's intended, where sometimes what seems to the provider, the behaviorist or the para as a positive reward can, when you're not earning it, the withholding of the reward can feel punitive to the child, and then that ends up escalating their behavior, so it can spiral. The people that I've heard stories from about this, that was kind of the common thread, that the kid got more and more emotionally divorced from what was going on in their school, and the relationship that needs to be there underlying all of this was somehow fractured. And I think that the statistics here don't 100% reflect what's going on, because some of these families just see, my child is becoming too upset by this, so we're going to choose to leave the district and go to a private school or homeschool. So even though the school didn't refer to an out-of-district placement, we're still losing students that way.
So which part?
I'm just wondering.
Should I address?
I don't know. Sorry, that was more of a comment than a question, I guess.
Well, and to be fair, it's kind of hard for me to answer what happens at the school level, right? Because I don't work in a school anymore. I do oversee the and support the professionals who work in STEP. I think that the situation that you described is not. It is not. I don't want to say it's rare, but it can happen when you're talking about implementing a reinforcer, providing something of value to a kiddo in order to encourage that behavior that we want to see being repeated, right? It's too much pressure to earn this thing, and I guess I feel, again, and I'm, you know, in a public forum, I have to speak in very general terms,
Right.
so I think that I would like to hope that the staff that we have implementing those very specific interventions would have the flexibility and the ability, I guess, to make changes when it's necessary. Because obviously, if that's not working, then we need to change it. But I don't. I mean, the first part of the comment, which is a child getting referred out of a classroom to STEP, that's not what happens. I mean, kids that receive STEP services, I mean, those are, you know, detailed plans that are planned for. It's not like a planning room where a kid gets, I'm looking to you guys just to reiterate that. Like, it's not like you're having a hard time in class, go to STEP.
It's a scheduled part of their day.
Right.
Okay.
It's part of their services, just like going to speech, just like going to special ed for academic help. It's part of their day. It's not contingent upon negative behavior in the classroom.
Okay, but not reactive in the moment, but over a longer term, does it occur that kids' plan includes longer and longer portions of the day being in STEP over a period of months?
I would hope it would be the reverse.
Right.
Yeah, the opposite. So again, like speaking in super general terms, I've been personally involved with interventions where due to anxiety, sensory overload, different sorts of you know, feelings that are occurring for a kiddo. Sometimes it's situational. Things are going on out of that kid's control, where we as a team decided to provide longer periods, like a set time period out of the classroom, where the child felt more safe and more, I don't know, less stressed out might be a way to put it. And then part of the plan, you know, we would have data, you know, to back up our decisions, and then use that data to make an informed kind of incremental steps, no pun intended, to spend longer periods of time in the classroom. So, like, again, super general terms, sometimes kiddos are very triggered by an event, like math, right? I hate math, I'm bad at math, you know, whatever the reason. This is, you know, very simplistic, but if the, you know, we take data, and usually this comes from the classroom teacher who will come and say, every day when it's time for math, this event happens, you know, whether it's whatever, crying, I go under the table, a meltdown. And so that could be a short-term plan, so to speak, where we remove the demand, or remove the event. You know, in ABA they might call it a setting event, and we work on building the confidence and capacity of that child to reintegrate back into that environment. Am I saying that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
All right, I'd like to call time here because we just used another half hour. So we need to decide, do we want to add this to a further agenda and talk more about it in a meeting?
I'm just wondering if there's anyone else here who wanted to comment or speak about this, since I know some of the people came or just good with listening.
I have a couple things, if that's okay. Do I say my name or anything, or do
Yeah.
I just start talking?
For the people
Hi,
at
I'm
home.
Bethany. I'm Bethany Ranquist, and a couple things. One, I am a homeschooling parent who pulled my kids out of school because they were having trouble in the classroom, and STEP was not really an option that was going to be helpful for them. So I will happily speak to that at some point, other than right now, because it's not really what my question is, but I definitely will speak to the fact that I know a lot of people who have done that. So Robin's point of that, I think is accurate, that does happen, or people look at putting their kids into other schooling options in the area and might not necessarily voice that. I know at the time that I pulled my kids out of school, I did not vocalize that to the school because I felt very uncomfortable. And that actually is one thing that I feel like is my main point that I want to say is that I know there's people here who probably have things to say or who want to just absorb. My nervousness about this is I'm a very outspoken person. I'm okay to talk about stuff, but I worry that parents who still have a vested interest here that their child is receiving STEP services or they're coming into this room where everybody has name tags and it seems really official, you might not necessarily get the feedback that I know that those of us in the community who are hearing from other parents are going to hear, because they might feel a little bit nervous that like that their child or they are going to be shunned or affected somehow, and maybe that's just a perception thing, but I think it's an accurate one, my sense is. So that's my first thing. So I guess I have a couple questions, but that ties into it. I'm wondering if or how often anonymous surveys are done among STEP parents to find, that sounds funny, among STEP parents, parents of kids in the STEP program. I know that they're done at the schools, but specifically those families to find out what their feeling is about it, and like when children are taken to another school or homeschooled, like how much of the conversation happens about that and why that reasoning is. But I also would encourage, if that's not happening, and I think that needs to happen much more frequently. I haven't heard that it's happening, but I just maybe haven't heard that from people. But I would want to know that, because I think that would be really important how the parents and the kids are perceiving the STEP program working for them. Also, my sense is that similar to what Robin was saying, things like ADHD and autism are really, for me, seem borderline with the STEP approach. But my biggest concern is that we have a very high population of children who have adverse childhood experiences, and also a very high population that has attachment issues. And there's just not a lot in the STEP services that I'm aware of that are really supportive of kids with attachment issues. Like, it just is a disservice to those children to expect that this will fit them. So I'm curious how that sort of disconnect, and that's where I hear a lot of stuff, is that kids with attachment issues don't get the services they need, and it's a struggle for the school because they have the STEP program they want to rely on. I'm going to cut this short, I promise, but they have the STEP program that they want to use for it, but it's really not designed for a child who needs a different type of intervention. So I would be very curious about how the schools are looking at that, and maybe looking at how to rearrange or change steps somehow with that. And also I'm very curious about the level of sensory breaks and a sensory room that each school has, whether they have one that's actually a genuine sensory room that is designated and specifically set up for that, whether there's an OT on staff at each school, and if that's something that's been talked about or used, because I feel like a lot of issues with frustration and with behavioral stuff can also get far worse when kids are feeling overwhelmed sensory, and kids with sensory issues, which is a pretty high percentage of the population, especially in those with neurodiverse stuff, tend to need a sensory diet over the course of the day, not just like when they need it. They actually need it throughout the day to keep them at a base so that they don't spike in their behavior. I think that's it. That was a lot to dump. I am planning on writing a letter. I didn't get a chance to because my computer wasn't working. I'm planning on writing a letter because I do work in the after-school program. So I see a lot of the kids that are serviced through the school, and so just sort of my opinions and whatnot based on that, but I just didn't get a chance to do it before now, so the school board can kind of expect that. There you go. So surveys, attachment issues, sensory breaks, OTs.
Thank you, Bethany.
My thoughts.
Thank you.
I also just want to ask one question about when you say that they're making these individualized behavior plans and approaches for each kid. I'm just wondering if when it is kids who have some of the types of issues that Bethany was talking about, if they would ever consider another approach besides the ABA reward-based model, like collaborative, proactive solutions, or the nurtured heart, or any of those other ones that are more designed to be like relationship first.
So, Bethany, thank you. I really I just want to say I super appreciate your feedback.
Yeah.
And so I think that I want to be mindful of the time as well. So I have a couple of responses. We did do parent, I just wanted to mention, when I worked at Academy, which is going on 5 years now, we did distribute parent surveys, and they were pretty favorable. So I think it's a good thing for me to think about and to talk to, my supervisor and Lyle about, and how can we, help. I think that's important feedback to have. So in terms of other approaches, STEP services, again, like at the thinking about it at the tippy top of that PBIS triangle, so to speak, the services are focused on functional behavior assessments and individual support plans. So that's, the professionals that work in STEP are behavior analysts, right? And they use a behavior analytic approach when trying to change behavior. That doesn't mean that other approaches and frameworks aren't part of the conversation and that they aren't part of the treatment planning. I don't know if that answers the question. Like, all the schools in Bradtown are doing ongoing professional development. We're talking at the leadership level about trauma-informed practice. And you had mentioned kids with attachment issues. These are things that we're working on as a system. I think all the time, and we're always talking about it. And I think that I feel just a little bit defensive about putting it all on STEP, because it's really everyone's responsibility. It's the school responsibility, right, to be mindful of neurodiversity, inclusion, kiddos with anxiety, and we have a lot of work to do, right, as at the bottom of the triangle, and I think that I feel pretty positive about that, and that the progress we're making. PBIS as a framework is really doing some work on incorporating trauma-informed practices within a PBIS framework, which I think is really smart and appropriate. So I'm looking forward to that, and I think that there's a lot of work ahead, and I feel that at least from my perspective, working with my colleague Greg, who's our PBIS coordinator now this year, and the district behavior coach and the principals. Working to refine those services all the time. I mean, I feel like it's fair to say we're always evolving. And I think, there's a lot to be said for needing more mental health and counseling support in schools so that they can be part of that planning as well. BCBAs aren't going to do, therapy like in a mental health clinical model, right? So I know, as part of our special ed continuum, we've invested some resource into a new position, special education social workers. They're not behaviorists, they're not teachers, but they provide a really valuable service. And the collaborative, when I referenced, when I worked in a self-contained program, the explosive child was my Bible. Ross Green, that was my roadmap for working with socially and emotionally challenged kiddos. So I think that, and I want to insert that, like I can't speak for the staff, but they are not just thinking in clinical terms, they're thinking in approaches that I think include trauma-informed practices, and you said relationship building. Relationship building is huge. A behavior analyst, in a traditional sense, may discount that. We don't. I really pride myself, I try to pride myself on the relationships that I have built as a professional with kids and their families, and they're our most important partners. And so I feel it's my responsibility as an administrator to impart that to the professionals that I oversee.
Yeah, STEP is a resource to change behaviors, and often unsafe behaviors. As you know, we've done a ton of work around trauma-informed practices, ACEs. We have therapy dogs coming to our schools every day. Our counselors provide a lot of this support for students as well. But STEP is not, every kid in STEP doesn't have the same plan. Each plan is different for each kid. And in my experience, when STEP has not worked for certain families, it's because of philosophical differences. And if the family doesn't agree with the approach that the school is taking, it often doesn't work. But if everybody is a collective team effort moving forward, trying things when they're not working, coming back to the table, retrying things, typically those are really nice success stories. And it may take a lot of failures before you get there. But that's my experience. When any one person on that team, whether it's a teacher who's not bought in, whether it's a parent, and it could be either, then those situations do not work. But when everyone is focused on, making the meeting, making that monthly meeting, analyzing the data, owning it, making changes, keeping up with communication, our success stories greatly outweigh the ones that have not worked.
Okay, somewhere we do need to end this, or assume. Let's stop and see, David and Robin, how much longer than 7 are you willing to stay here?
I'll stay till people are done talking about what they need to talk about.
Yeah, this is important, and it's not the first time it's come. It's a sort of a continuing issue, and it's obviously one of the most important parts and probably most challenging parts of your work. From your faces, it's obvious.
I know this is a
topic.
I'm sorry.
But what you just said, Mark, brings me to a question. There are going to be parents that, and I know some of the answers, but there are going to be parents that don't think this is the right way to go, or there are going to be parents who aren't going to follow up the way you described. Come to the meetings that just can't, for a lot of reasons that we also, or a lot of us are familiar with. So what do you do? What do you do then?
I feel like we bend over.
How do you do it when you've got one hand tied behind you or whatever?
If there's no buy-in, it's probably not going to work, to be honest with you. But if there's a collective buy-in and a determination to communicate and move forward every step of the way, it typically works. But if there's any aspect of that team that doesn't believe in it or isn't a part of moving forward with the solution, it typically doesn't work. That's my experience.
And it's important to note that STEP services requires parent permission. So it's not something that we as a school team are going to say, this kid needs STEP services, there's no choice about it, we're doing it. It's a collaboration from the beginning, from the referral to the STEP team. So there's nothing that STEP's going to do without the parent permission.
In my experience, one of the greatest aspects of STEP is that the communication is taken down to like one level. If you have a child who's misbehaving constantly, being unsafe in school, without a STEP program, you're probably hearing from the teacher, you're probably hearing from the principal, the counselor, HCRS worker. You're constantly getting bombarded with this information. STEP simplifies that. That's your go-to, that's your team. That's your person who's going to be the one communication back and forth and ideally be, the backbone of support for the family, who may get totally overwhelmed with, all this other information from multiple teachers, counselors, principals. So I think if you're committed, to be a part of that, it really works.
I just have something to piggyback on what you were saying and to reply to you, David, is that I want to be mindful, with my special education hat on, that, despite professionals' best intentions, sometimes it's not enough. And that's not, there's no judgment on that. Sometimes whether it's mental health or other neurotypical need, there are some students for whom, all of the things here, not just the things at the tippy top, because, students receiving STEP services should be getting all of these interventions. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, it's not public school is not it's not working at that particular moment. Hopefully that's not forever. And that was why I made the comment about an out-of-district placements. Sometimes a child needs a therapeutic placement that provides things that we can't provide here. And the hope is that with intervention and treatment geared specifically for that kiddo, that they will be able to return with different coping strategies and or mental health supports that will help them be successful.
Yeah, my other question was kind of following right along on that. When you get to that point, can you just kind of outline some of the resources that the state has, or that in the private sector or wherever it is, that the kinds of resources that are available beyond what our system can provide when we need them?
Well, I wish it was more.
Yeah.
And I think that, we do have some there are therapeutic day schools here in Brattleboro or within driving distance, not, less than 5.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't a plethora from which to choose. And then sometimes there are, very exceptional circumstances where students are maybe in DCF custody, or there's DCF involvement, HCRS, we're all working together through a coordinated service plan, and that team may make a unified decision to seek a higher level of care for a kiddo through like a residential. Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. It's not super common at the elementary level, at least not in my experience here.
Fortunately.
Yeah. Yep. But we rely. I think we try. There are a lot of. There are many therapists in private practice that work with our kiddos. I think that not just STEP, but other, we try, there are special ed case managers reaching out to those professionals to try to make sure that we're meeting all the needs that we can for a kiddo, because the needs are not always straight academic, right? There's usually more, there's sometimes more layers to behavior, as someone put earlier. It's very true.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Where do we stand now? Are we done with this topic? Is there something back?
Shelley, I'm just curious what your thoughts are as to the time frame for sort of moving that trauma-informed practice into the STEP programming. We have a child for whom the STEP behavioral approach was really quite disastrous, but this, she certainly had some early developmental trauma that had a tremendous impact, and was really impossible for her to experience success in there. So I'm really excited to hear that, the district is working toward implementing that and working that in.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I would sort of defer to the rest of my administrative colleagues on that. It's definitely, we're actively working on professional development needs pretty much at the leadership level every time we meet, and mapping out plans for next year. I know that several of the individual Brattleboro town schools have had work with Dave Melnick and Joelle Van Lent. Yep. And I think that, and just to be a little bit of a stickler about the putting STEP in there, we're advocating for trauma-informed practice for everybody. You know what I mean? Classroom teachers, specialist teachers, all of the professionals that work in the building. And I'm excited that PBIS, as a framework that, the majority, that's a behavior framework most of our schools use, they're really becoming more informed, no pun intended, on trauma-informed practices, and how I had an experience this year that was really, for me as a professional, it was exciting and it made me very hopeful about the work that we're doing, that the two things don't necessarily have to be exclusive, right? You know, positive behavior support plans, trauma-informed practice. And I attended a meeting where a mental health professional was talking about the concept of co-regulation, which is something, you know, I'm not super familiar with, just on a surface level. We were talking about a behavior intervention that was a behavior intervention, like an experience a kid was having. And when the teacher described what she was doing with the child, the mental health professional was like, "You're co-regulating." And it was this it was an epiphany for me that a lot of I don't want to say misunderstanding, but sometimes we get caught up in the language, right? Because I know in behavior analysis we have terms and we call, reinforcement and consequences, etc. In trauma-informed practice in the mental health world, there are terms for things. Sometimes those things have a lot of commonalities, and so I'm excited to be thinking about that because I think it's going to benefit our kids, and especially our kids that need that type of intervention, the trauma-informed intervention. I hope that answered your question.
I think another piece of that, Shelley, is that the BCBAs that we have right now are really highly qualified, and they're coming from extensive experience with all sorts of kids in special ed, working as mental health workers in homes, with families. They're not just coming straight out of college to ABA and then to us. Yeah. They have so much experience, so it's really on a kid-by-kid basis that they're making their decisions.
In our work around resilience and ACEs, that's a universal tier 1 approach that all staff participate in terms of professional development, and that was has been a focus for the past 2 years to improve that area of knowledge for all staff members.
And it's pre-K through 12. There's a group from the high school that's been going to do some work with Dave Melnick and coming back and having some study groups at the high school as well. So it's not just the elementary, we're working on it SU-wide.
Because the fact is that in our community, we have lots of kids with lots of ACEs coming into our schools. And it's just PD that we have to have because that's what our classrooms look like. And trauma-informed practices help all kids. It's a tier 1 approach to working with children that helps every child, not specific to a child with multiple ACEs.
Okay, anything else? Going once?
At the end of the sheet, it had said out-of-district placements had reduced, and this year they went up a little bit. What is the percentage of out-of-district placements overall?
Like K through 12?
Well, meaning no, when you said something had reduced, it seems
Yeah.
like you would have a number that you're talking about reduced.
Oh, yeah, reduced from the first data point, which was, I believe it was around 15.5%.
Of students that were in step that were placed?
No, of special
overall.
education students at the elementary level in Brattleboro. It's kind of a specific data set.
Mm-hmm. So reduced from the 15% down.
Let me just make one more comment. You know, we look at these triangles, and I don't have a vision for what it could look like, but I don't necessarily like the triangle. And the reason I say that is because the triangle looks like it's like you go up to the top and then it's like, oh, now I'm stuck. This is where I'm going to be. And, you know, that if you can't make the 80% cut, the 15%, then you're kind of stuck up there. And, you know, some of our success stories are seeing where students, you know, might come to us in kindergarten that are receiving more of a tier 3 kind of step services. And first grade, we were just At EST today, we're having a meeting on EST, and there was an EST plan for a child who was in kindergarten. And it's like, look at this EST plan that we had 2 years ago. It had all, a lot around step services, and the child right now doesn't even go to step services. Everything that is happening in terms of is all in general ed. It's all PBIS stuff. But was that those services important for that child to be successful when he was in kindergarten? Yes. So that's the thing. That's the only thing I want to say. But just that I don't know if there's another, anyone out there that's creative in terms of graphic, but it's like you get to the top and it's just like, oh, we're moving up, and now I'm kind of stuck in this little top of the pyramid. But it's a very fluid. It should be a very, very fluid. If we're really looking at student needs, where they're at. There are some students that may have been receiving step services earlier, and all of a sudden they're in an older grade. They haven't been receiving step support, but changes in their families. Something new is happening in their family, and they're just falling apart. They are going and getting support and help from the staff that they knew, that they kind of relied on, and it's like that's that relationship piece, going to connect with those, that check-in, check-out that we look at it for the yellow, that might be all that they really need, that they just need that personal connection. So it's not all about even the little toys and trinkets in front of them. It's a lot more than that.
Hi, I'm still Bethany Francis. Jerry, two things actually. Jerry, what if it was like a volcano, so that the top of the triangle is open, so that you either have to keep going up, like things like, oh, this isn't working, we're out of the triangle, so we have to get creative, and also maybe then things can float back down if they end up back in the bottom of it. Like, oh, this kid used to be at the top and now they're back down at the bottom. Like a volcano kind of has that open and fall thing. I don't know. Or you could just view the triangle as a volcano when you look at it, and then it makes you not as like, that was just an aside. You guys addressed it. The only thing I'm curious about is the OT part, whether there's a district OT, and if not, if that's something we should look at and then have somebody at each school. But that's a separate. I don't want to drag this on too much. I can find that out on my own. But I guess
our district employs a full-time occupational therapist and a CODA, certified occupational therapy assistant.
Is there one in each
through special
school
education?
at all,
No, there's
or-
not.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just the SU that employs them, not the district.
Right, not
through special education.
right, but not like at the school based on like helping the teachers work on sensory stuff or helping individual kids with it. Okay.
I will say that for kiddos who have that as part of like an IEP plan, a lot of what our district OT does is do consultation with teams and teachers.
Right.
And I've run a lot of sensory plans for kiddos who need it.
Right.
Yep.
And then just my other thing was just, I know you sort of addressed the survey thing, but I guess want to just make a final plea that be something, because I know at least at Academy they do a survey of the parents and like that, for the school, but I guess I just would like plea that is something that gets looked at and done, as a way of evaluating, because it's easier for us from an administrative level to sit, like I admire what happens at the school so much. I think we have such a great, school education system in the area. I just also want to be aware that like the experience that teachers are having and that the staff is having and that they think that they see the kids having might be very different than what the families themselves are having. And I feel like that feedback would be really essential for a further conversation about this stuff. STEP specifically, not just the school, but what are those experiences?
Thank you.
It's in my
Okay
notes.
now?
I put it in my notes, Bethany, so.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you so much, Shelley, for answering
thank
all these
you.
questions.
All right, so we are normally through with our meeting now, but so we'll have to do some extensions here. We have 3 things on the agenda that look like they require action tonight, so they should be done first, and then we'll see what else we want to get to, if anything. One is the legal notice, land transfer Crowell lot. Who's got information on that?
So I will just read the beginning. I'll need you to approve this and sign it, and then we will post it. The Brattleboro Town School Board hereby provides notice to the community that the school board intends to sign a warranty deed conveying to the town of Brattleboro the lands and premises known as the Crowell lot located on Western Avenue, Brattleboro, Vermont, for the sum of $1. If you agree to this, you should make that motion and move on that, and then we will post this. It has to, the conveyance shall take place at least 30 days subsequent to the date of this publication, so we will post it for the 30 days required notice, and then come back and do the final conveyance.
Who's got a motion?
I do. I move that we post the land transfer, the legal notice of the land transfer document of the Crowell lot to the town of Brattleboro.
Is there any discussion on that? Oh, we have a second.
I have a few questions about that. Sorry, Lyle.
That's all right.
My first question is, we're giving it to the town of Brattleboro, correct?
Yes.
Are you giving it to the rec department?
The town of Brattleboro, the rec department is part of the town of Brattleboro.
Right, okay.
It's going to the
So
town.
my concern is, as schools, when we try to use the skating facilities, we are charged. In return, when the rec department uses our buildings for basketball, they are not charged. I know that Green Street uses the Crowell lot a lot, and it's very important to Green Street. I do not want to see us having to pay to use the Crowell lot. It's important to Green Street, they need that green space, because most of their property is paved.
Can I read what we thought of that? Thanks to Jerry, I guess among others, but particularly Jerry. The deed is being, I'm quoting from the notice. This deed is being given in order to place legal title to the land and premises in the legal ownership of the town of Brattleboro. The premises will remain public property with the ability of the schools to have priority use of the premises for outdoor school purposes during normal school hours.
Okay.
So we won't be.
Now, what about the other properties that the town school owns?
The other one that we
The Fort Dummer Field?
We talked about Fort Dummer Field, and at this point, our thinking is that since that's used mostly by the middle school and the high school, that that we would leave that in and have it be merged with part of the unified district.
Okay. Now, was there
There's some
other-
concern about, we were talking about, we haven't finished, I don't think, on that one, because there was some concern about if the unified district decided to sell it for, for development or something, that we would get it back, or something to that effect, but we haven't, I don't think we didn't settle on that one yet.
Now, isn't there a third property? Wasn't there 3 properties you were talking about?
The only other one I know about is the slope by the electric power thing above the cotton mill hill. We own some part of that hillside, which is absolutely useless for anything. Yeah.
We can't, literally cannot give it away, because
We've tried.
nobody wants it. We have tried.
Okay. I just don't want to see us having to pay to use a piece of property that's very important to Green Street.
Yeah.
No, they don't have green space.
Yep. And that's exactly what we're trying to protect.
You're welcome.
Okay, any further comments on this issue? All right, and we have a motion to accept the land transfer, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Okay, that's one. The other one, the BCTV production contract. Who has information on
I
that?
have information on that. Each year, we request BCTV to film our meetings, and we have to renew that yearly. So the BCTV cost proposal is $350, and this is going to be for the town rep info session. I think that's right.
Yep. Which is another item on the agenda. So, I'll move this too. I move that we accept the production contract, request to record and air the, creating a program for the town rep information session with Brattleboro Community Television.
Seconded.
Any discussion on accepting the BCTV production contract? Okay, all in favor? Aye. 3-0. And the third thing is item E, Act 250.
Nope, that video, oh, it's just, go ahead.
Act 250 School Impact Questionnaire, Lot 28, Delta Campus, 5 dwellings, ratification needed. What is that about?
So we had discussed this a few meetings ago, but we never formally voted on this. And it's just like it says, the Delta campus is going to increase their buildings. They estimate that it could increase our students by approximately 5 students. They want to make sure that we are not going to be negatively impacted by 5 additional students.
We would love to have their 5 students.
We would
Okay, so
So
what are we ratifying?
You just need to formally say that you agree that this Delta campus increase will not negatively affect us.
Okay. I move that we agree that the Delta campus will not negatively affect us.
Second.
Is there discussion on accepting the 5 additional students in the system? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Pass 3-0. Okay, so now we have several other things. Do we want to prioritize that or call it a meeting and continue for next?
I think we should try and get through it and see how quickly we
You want us to? Okay, is there a consensus on what we should do first, or just start and
I
work
think
down?
we might be able to do the video review pretty quickly.
All right, let's do the video review, item D.
That was actually Kim and
Jill did a lot of work putting together
put
a video,
together.
summing up some of our important meetings of the year for people to review.
And we've got an hour and a half of about 4 or 5 6-minute segments.
An hour
We
and
need to
8
choose-
minutes. An hour and 8 minutes.
8, okay. And we need to pick 2 or 3.
That has to be reduced to how much?
To 2 or 3 of those 4
So
or
it's
5
like
or 6
15
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah,
About 15 minutes?
Yeah.
So the question is how and who to do that.
Well, Jill, I don't know, she may not be on the board now, but she can still continue with that work if she'd like to.
I don't think we
I
can.
don't think she would
we can
like to.
volunteer
You don't
that.
think so?
We
How
can't
about
volunteer.
Kim? Do you think she would like to?
I think it'll be hard for Kim just because she's working
Yeah,
all day
Okay,
and she
do
has
we have any
meetings
other
tomorrow.
volunteers?
Well, I'm willing to, I've looked through them all, and it's really hard to, I think if we had some guidance about what we wanted to be sure to cover, I mean, some of them are really terrific case studies, some of them are parents, some of them are about the pre-K, and, which is new programming in the district, so I think we want to have at least one case study, and I think we certainly want to hear from the voice of the parents, but, so I'd be willing to go through and look and find some and then send the time stamps around to, but it's all really good. There's some really great
So
stuff.
is there a reason that it has to be shortened? Can we just send it out as
Well,
it is?
we can email the whole thing to everybody.
Yeah, I
if we
think we
wanted
are
to
going to
show
send it out as it is, but this
Okay.
was for thinking if we were going to present an informational meeting, that we would need to have a brief segment to show at that.
Yeah.
I think maybe, can we jump from this for a second to what are we doing about the town representative meeting? And then when we make a decision on that, then we'll know, do we need to come up with a 15-minute clip for an informational night, or are we not worrying about that?
To the informational meeting that we do, or?
Well, we're not doing one.
We're not doing that, okay.
Unless we decide that we need to present a budget at the town meeting, which we currently are not supposed to do. So that's kind of what I feel like this is relevant of. If we, based on the fact that we have now delayed organizing a transitional merged board, do we need to get a budget in place for our voters And if we decide yes on that, then I think we should come back and think about making an edited clip for an informational session for that. If we decide no, we're gonna just proceed as is, then I don't think we need to make anything shorter than the hour and 8 minutes.
Okay, how does that suit you, all right?
Yeah.
Fair suggestion, well, that's fine then, so let's jump down to item H. Or F. The fiscal year 20 budget
Wait.
discussion.
Is what, yeah, is that what I'm talking about?
Well, they're all kind of the same, I think.
Yeah,
Town
it's
representative
confusing me that there's
meeting,
2 items there. I think
budget
it's kind of the
discussion,
same.
And the video, yeah.
Okay, so can you remind us, Lyle, of how would this timeline play out now that we cannot organize until April 2nd? So when would we be able to have an officially elected board meet and pass a budget? What would be the earliest that could possibly happen?
6 Mondays after, but that does not give the people running for the board much time to get the petition signed. So if you want to give people a week, let's say, to get a petition signed.
Very fast.
That would be very fast. That would mean we would set the date for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably around April 30th could be elections.
Okay.
I have been in contact with Chris Leopold, our attorney.
Wait a minute.
He said that
I'm sorry, could you go back with the 6 Mondays? How did you get from April 2nd to April 30th? That seems like less than 6, isn't it?
29 is a Monday, 22, 58. Yep, so it's got to be into May. Sorry, I miscounted. So I was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, sorry. It looks like May 7th.
Okay, so May 7th would be the first meeting of the officially elected
It would
merged
actually,
board.
the election would
Oh,
take.
that would be the election.
So it would be the
Okay,
next
so
day.
maybe the next day, then, May 7th?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, the next
Okay.
day. So though that's the first day of the official elected board, and that we can start meeting to look at budgets, putting budgets together. I would really encourage that anyone that's going to run for the merge board should be going to any kind of work that the transition board or any other people that come together to start working on a merged budget are doing, so that it doesn't mean that all of a sudden new people are jumping into this budget process. So we are hoping that it won't take the new merged board a long time to have a really working solid knowledge of the budget. So we would be looking at probably, however, an annual meeting. We can do it the first week in July. When we thought about that, we were very concerned because it's the week of July 4th. A lot of people take vacation, so we were looking at probably July 9th as the annual meeting to accept the budget.
The budget that's supposed to start on July 1st?
Yes.
And so that would be like the extreme fast track, earliest possible July 9th.
Earliest possible is probably July 1.
July
but
1.
We have to consider when are we going to actually get people to go to an annual meeting.
Okay.
Well, could I just slow down just for a second? Because the transitional board has to be elected. The election would be the 7th, so
The merged board has to be
merged,
elected.
yeah.
Yep.
The May 6th.
Yeah, sorry. And so within a few days after that, they could meet and warn a budget meeting. So there could be a budget vote or an annual meeting in early June.
There's the 30, 40 day.
So it's got to be more than, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So that would make it late June then.
Late June, and I think when we looked, it was July 1 was the absolute earliest. Or maybe June 30th, which is a Sunday, something like that.
Okay.
Now, how does this relate to
So I can go on.
what we're doing now with the budget?
Sure. So, 2 things are happening right now. Some towns, Guilford and BU number 6, have decided that they would not have individual budget votes and would wait to see what was happening with the merged board. 2 towns, Putney and Dummerston, have voted budgets knowing that when we merge, that those budgets will be the budgets that they support to be added to the merged budget, knowing that those budgets would be null and void. So what you need to do is decide what you want to do. Do you want to present a budget to the town reps and say, this is the budget? If we're not a merged entity, this is what we want to use for to run our school district? Or you present the budget and say, if we are a merged entity, this is what we want to propose as Brattleboro's portion of that merged budget.
And that would not be a voting item, it would just be information.
Well, Putney and Dummerston voted, Guilford did not.
But I
BB6
mean,
did not.
if you...
It can go either way.
What I guess I'm wondering is, what are the legal ramifications if we have people vote on our budget that we made, and then they say, yes, we all agree that's the budget that should be used?
So because there are at least 6 other areas in the state going through this right now, and there's no precedence for this, the lawyers have said that the Agency of Ed is going to have to send us guidance because there are so many areas in the state that are in the same sort of kettle right now. Some will have voted budgets, some will not have, some will have voted budgets, and then all of a sudden they have to merge. So what happens to the first budget? There is no precedence. So they will have to give guidance to us for either scenario.
Okay. So we're just on a shaky legal ground by either choice.
Any choice we make. I would say that if you don't present a budget to the representative town meeting, to town reps, and the merged is put on hold for a year or found to be illegal, whatever happens, you will have to come back and have a special meeting.
And we have to call all the town reps to come to an additional meeting.
Exactly. If you do propose it with the language that I don't have in front of me, but I think that you have in the warning, then you can vote on it, and just like what will happen in Putney, if we are forced to merge, then that budget will become null and void, and it'll just be considered as part of the merged.
I'd like to weigh in first. Both Emily and Andy, here are 2 copies of what I wrote here, which nobody saw until I came in. And my assessment is that we could pass a budget, and between that it is highly unlikely that amount of money that we were planning to spend for ourselves, were it added to a collected budget for a merged district, would be very close to the amount that we would be assessed anyway. And probably all the district budgets or added together will cumulatively come out to an amount that'll be very close to what the merged district will actually be spending. There are also, in our budgets and the finances, and there's reserve funds which will be available if there's a little bit more money needed. If it doesn't quite work out perfectly, they can carry a little bit of red ink for the next year and then straighten it all out. But so I'm not really worried in any case. And we have the state that will be trying to, that I assume will be flexible in every way that they can to make sure that every school district will be able to pay all of its wages and all of its bills, and that education is not going to be impeded for the coming year. So I feel that we're safest if we present our budget for passage at town meeting. Period.
Couple of questions, Lyle. There's one, actually. I didn't look up the language, but I recall that the warning is about at least 30 days notice and not more than 45?
40.
So, 40, just 40? Oh, I didn't either. Yeah, so it could be 31.
Yes.
And and that's true with the election as well?
Election has to be 6 Mondays after petitions are due.
Oh, because of the mail-in, yep, okay. So the earliest election is May 7th, but the earliest budget could be June 7th, or the first week of June, rather than having to go all the way to the 40 days and have it be the 21st of June. So, because it's more like fitting it in and then having time, because I think you're right, the budget is going to be very similar to what everybody had. If you look in every town report, it's all in there. I mean, we wouldn't staple them together, but basically it's an accounting effort rather than a redrafting or imagination or any kind of decisions about programs or anything like that. But squeezing it in between now and July 1st is really the question. And I think what you said makes sense.
I'm also just wondering, Lyle, if you can speak to, if we don't have a budget passed for the merged district until July, is that going to impact our ability to receive any federal or state money?
That's the only thing that's still questionable. Paul Smith has been trying to get an answer about title funds, because title funds have to be given to an entity, and it can't be given to, for instance, Brattleboro Town, and then Brattleboro Town gives a portion to Guilford and a portion to Putney. So we're still working on that. That's the only thing I'm really worried about. We will be able to, if we don't have a budget passed, we'll be able to borrow money so that we can pay teachers. We won't give them a contract, we'll give them letters of intent, because we can't have contracts until we have an approved budget, but we would be able to borrow. And in the past, it was, as an SU, you could borrow up to 87% of the previous year's budget. Because the merged district doesn't have a previous year's budget, that's again something that we're waiting for the state to tell us. So how much would we be able to borrow? Would we be able to borrow 100% of what we're anticipating?
And does us passing a budget at town meeting give any mitigation to that? Like, would we then be able to receive money as the legal entity of Brattleboro Town School District, even though, in a sense, we wouldn't really exist?
I don't know the answer to that. I think the one thing that it does do is it gives a strong message to the new merged board that this is the budget that you support for Brattleboro Town.
Okay, so then that sounds like it's a good idea if we do it.
Yeah. George?
George Crowell, District 1. I agree that it's a good idea, but for a slightly different reason, just fiscally responsible. If you don't pass a budget and then we need one, you're going to have the expense of another representative town meeting to do it. We're all coming together in March. Let's just do it, and we have it.
And there's no harm in passing it.
Yeah.
If it's moot, it's moot. Yeah. So do we have to talk
Okay,
anymore, or just?
is there a motion then to present the FY20 school budget at town meeting?
I'll make the motion, I guess. I move that we do present a budget for voters.
Is there any further discussion on that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. So we will present the budget at town meeting.
Do you have another comment, George?
Question, if I may. I was wondering, are there any funds, I'm thinking particularly of scholarship funds, that are in trust for students of Brattleboro to go to college or anything, that we, as Brattleboro, might want to somehow keep to continue to present them as they were originally intended to Brattleboro students? Do you get the meaning of what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know, does anybody know
We don't have
that?
any for that purpose, but we do have some.
Yes.
Lyle, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, and the articles of agreement specifically state that any monies like that are to be kept for those purposes. So scholarships at the high school is a really good example. All of those scholarships must stay in, to be used as they are currently intended. We have some scholarships for, I think it's science, STEM activities for Brattleboro Town, so that schools can bring in extra presenters or whatever. Those must stay for the original intended use.
All righty. So we got that done.
And then, okay, so now let's go back to the video thing.
Uh-huh.
I will move that we appoint a committee of David and myself to create a 15-minute clip for the representatives, and also, well, I'll just leave it at that for the moment.
I'll second that, and I'd like to, since we have
Okay.
friendly amendment, or actually, can I interrogate the videographer? When we say create, what it means is we give you the minutes, the stamp, the time stamps from the segments, and you create it for us with nice little transitions.
This was supposed to have been done 3 weeks ago, and I received information about that and pulled together the hour and 8-minute video. The idea was for you to review that over those last 3 weeks and then give me information so I could have it ready for this meeting, so there would just be a review and a few
Right.
minor
That was the
corrections.
hope, yeah.
This meeting that you're talking about, is this the 14th?
We don't even have a meeting.
The,
We don't have a meeting yet.
Okay.
I'm sorry, town meeting on the 21st.
On the 23rd, yeah.
Okay.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry. Are we talking about showing this at town meeting or at an informational meeting?
We're not gonna, well, we don't have an information meeting scheduled, and we probably could.
Can we schedule one at this point?
Yes, because it's 2 weeks out. The normal time would be the 20th, would be our next normally scheduled meeting, right?
20th Wednesday?
Yeah.
And I, let's see, I believe the town,
That's when we always happen.
That's when it always happens, right?
That's the regular
Yeah.
night. People probably think it's already happening.
the school meeting always happens on?
Yep, it's usually the
Yeah, it's our
Wednesday.
regular, our next
Because there's
meeting
something
was
on the
supposed to
town
be at-
calendar right now, but I don't have it with me.
I think that the only meeting that has been called as a town representative informational night is the one about the town's budget, which is the 14th. Our next meeting, the 21st, we had kind of thought might be this, and then we were like, oh, we're not presenting, so we'll just do a normal school board meeting. But if we change it back to that, would it, if David and I can get you something tomorrow with timestamps, would you be able to pull it together for that date, for the 21st?
20th, it's the 20th.
20th, I'm sorry, I keep saying 21st, it's 20th.
There's sufficient time to do that. I have to consult with my core, our executive director, because the contract was for one video, and basically I have done one video.
Okay,
So
this would be for additional money.
Okay, all right, but I still have to talk with her about
Okay.
the change
Yeah.
in the schedule. It possibly, yes, if you get me those clips within a few days, and it's on the 21st. We still need another review, so it's just.
But you could send it to us so we could review it without having the whole board meet.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Now, I don't quite understand, are we talking about the long hour?
That's already done,
hours?
it's already been made.
Oh, that's
and
done.
We can send that out to.
approve
Oh,
that,
and
yeah,
that's
we
what
need a
said that,
motion.
so
We need a
now this
motion
is
to
the
approve that.
15-minute or
To
the
send it out?
6-minute?
Right.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to officially approve the video that was made? Or is that just like, we did it, it's ready?
I think if we're gonna pay for additional services, we need to move that.
Okay.
And I was expecting a few minor corrections or suggestions for that long one.
Okay.
Just to get some feedback. And then if that's okay, then we can certainly start pulling your
Okay.
smaller clips from that.
I know that was something that Kim and Jill had looked at a lot, and unfortunately neither of them are here tonight, so we will give you a final thumbs up or tweaks on that.
Yep.
our video as well as selected moments.
I was also under the understanding that Kim was going to be also carrying this forward as per an email that Cora and I got this afternoon from Jill and Kim. So you might want to touch base with her first.
Okay,
I think Kim volunteered to make sure it got out to all the reps,
Okay,
but
all right.
I think you two should check
Yeah,
in with
we
her.
can have Kim be unofficially in the committee too, since she's not here, I won't make her a part of it, but I move that we allocate money to pay BCTV for an additional short clip of that hour-long video.
Second. Any comments or questions?
Well, can I just ask a question? So town reps will get the hour and 8-minute video?
In an email.
Right. So why go through the work of reducing it to a 15-minute?
To show at the presentation of the budget meeting.
I guess there's a cynical implied view in that people will not have watched the whole hour and 8 thing. I think that's my most honest answer as to why.
I mean, I think the video is really well done. If it was maybe sent with like a table of contents, like this is the order of the subjects that are on the video, maybe representatives can pick and choose different sections.
And that's part of the contract, is to do that.
Okay,
But I think
you think that maybe we would just not need to show a video at the informational night and just say, watch this before you come, here's the part, you can skip around to what you're interested in.
I just think, I mean, the video is really well done. There's a lot of great information.
Yeah.
If we're sending it to them already.
Okay, Andy, did you want to?
It is possible, as many of us have done in education, you get a long video, you review it, you write down the time that you want to show to your student because you don't have time for the whole thing, and you present the video, you present clips of it. It's not just going through the expense of condensing it into a finished product, but you can present it, someone who's familiar with the video, I've got 8 clips I want to show.
Okay.
Each clip is 1 minute long or 2 minutes long with a little introduction, and it's so easy technologically to just to do that in real time. Is that kind of what you're suggesting, Mark?
Okay, that is a good
Rather than
suggestion,
produce a
than
new
having another
product.
produced video. Yeah, I think that is a good suggestion.
And
Okay.
may I just make a comment?
Yeah.
That whole video was conceived and pulled together with that idea that once I realized it was going to be a long one, that it's in its entity, it is entire in its entity. To start pulling stuff out is going to be very difficult to make it have some continuity to it.
Okay.
So
I didn't understand. I thought we always planned to have a shorter version.
Well,
But do
as
you-
I said, when I got that information about let's use all of it, then I just went at it as a whole.
Do you have, so we should go through and for each of those segments, come up with a title or some descriptor.
And that's
and
already
send that
been
to you.
done because
Kim did that already.
Kim and Jill already asked for those subheads to be put in.
And you've already done that?
I've already done that. It's not on the one that you have,
Okay.
but I've
So
done
we
it.
don't even,
Okay, so that's fine then. I think
Yeah.
that's a good plan. That
I
we
didn't,
said,
I just
we'll
saw
just
this
write
raw
down for
video with
ourselves
no
the
indication of
timestamps
what
and
was in
then
there.
if we want to jump it, the person who's operating the computer can just find those spots instead of making another produced video. I
Okay.
think that is a good.
So will you two then decide what it is exactly that you want to show on the 20th?
Yeah, we can just do this over email with Kim tomorrow, and
Yeah.
so then we don't have to commission any more work then
Right.
from BCTV. We'll just pay for
So
what
you can
we've already
relax.
wonderfully made and leave it at that.
Okay.
Okay, then I'm going to retract my motion.
You want to withdraw the motion?
Sorry, you have a couple of comments that haven't been officially voted on.
Oh, that's just great.
So there was the motion to create the committee of Robin and David to create the video that was not finally voted on in the end.
Right.
Yeah, it was withdrawn.
No.
No,
Not
it
yet.
wasn't. And then the second one was, you just said that you'd like to withdraw
To
the
pay.
motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. That was the motion to pay for a produced video. I'm going to go back to my first one and say I would still like to, I don't know if this needs to officially be a motion, but just in case, I will do it, that David, Kim, and I will figure out what clips to show at the informational night and put it like that. And
That's great.
I'll say something to you in a minute. That's not part of the motion.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what we'll do.
Yeah. Is that it? You got all that, Kelsey? Okay. This isn't, do we just vote on that then?
I
Or
don't
does
think we
someone
have
need to
to.
second?
What is the motion on the floor?
That David, Kim, and I decide what clips to show at the town meeting.
Okay, well, let's just do that as a task.
Okay. No, let's move it and then,
Move
because
it.
it's three of us for one thing.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. All right, so that
Okay.
passes then.
And then also, we will tell you tomorrow if there's any edits to that.
Is this last item, the use of reserve funds, G, has that been
Hold on one second. She was just
absorbed?
asking if the administrators had any suggestions for the video. Have you guys had a chance to review it or anything?
Yeah, I think.
Your teams
Really
did
well done.
nice work.
Yeah, I think it really
Really good.
captures
I think we've all looked
those
at it.
important meetings that we've had in the school presentations.
We just need to get people to look at it now.
Okay.
Okay, so this last item, the use of reserve funds, has that been absorbed into other things, or is it still?
No, but we don't need to do it tonight. I suggest that I move that we move the discussion of the use of reserve funds to April 3rd, our reorganization meeting. Our new members will be aboard. And I ask that the administration prepare an accurate, as of the moment, description of what's in our reserve fund.
Okay.
Second?
Now, seconded.
Any discussion on that motion of moving the discussion on the reserve fund to the April 3rd meeting, whatever it is?
Can I just ask a question? Because we had said something about the next meeting with the pre-K providers. I'm wondering if it's town meeting rep, we should put that on the April 3rd.
Yes. And I think that we should move everything
Is that
from
to
our,
talk about how to do it? Yeah.
what's on our next agenda for the 21st?
The 20th, we just have
20th.
town meeting.
Town meeting, town rep
Town rep
presentation.
Oh, we left that empty? I thought we had
Yeah.
put some things on that day because we thought we weren't having a thing.
No, I've got multiple copies of this year's plan that's not on any.
Okay, okay, so that's still as needed.
A lot of other things changed, but not as much as usual. So pre-K.
Okay.
Okay, so do we need to vote on moving those agenda items, or is that just?
Nope, we just
done? Okay.
Well, if it's a motion, we have to vote on it.
I mean.
We just moved,
Changing
we added one and, oh no, well, we don't, yeah.
Next
Well,
agenda is just the pre-K.
We're
provider.
continuing those items until that meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so then that motion can be withdrawn.
All right, now, do we adjourn before we do executive session, or?
Hang on one second,
No.
before we finish this. So if our next school board meeting is going to be an informational session, who is gonna create this whole presentation that Jill usually does?
On the budget?
Well, just like, this is
Yeah.
what we're gonna say to everybody, yeah, on the budget and any other info. I mean, we've agreed to decide about video clips, but what about all the rest of it?
Yeah, and we typically have a whole big, I think it's gonna be, I think we should just have it be what we had talked about in the first place, which is a kind of an update of where we are in the whole transition process, why we're presenting this budget, and here's the budget, you know, you've had it, it's in the book, you've had it for a long time.
Okay.
And here are some of the changes, and not really go into a lot of detail with it.
Do you feel comfortable leading that discussion?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'll have to think about it,
Yeah.
talk with you about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You could meet with
because
Brian.
if we're gonna present the budget for a vote, then we have to say something about it.
Right. I'm looking at, like, usually I just roll in, I'm like, okay, Jill's, I got everything prepared, I'm
And the
here to
the
look good and
motions are
answer
right there
questions.
printed up
Yeah, I
and
just
just
read
read
what
it,
you
yeah.
told me to do. So
Not
without
this
her
year.
doing all of that legwork that she usually does, I just want to make sure that someone's going to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that would be
I
great,
will.
David, if you agree to do it.
Okay, that seems to wrap up everything
I'll send you an email about when you make it.
we're gonna try to do tonight.
One last question about that meeting. Where's it going to take place?
Where is the meeting supposed to take place, our next meeting?
It'll be here because it's the town meeting rep, and that's what we always.
But didn't we have a thing where we were doing it each different school
Oh, we
rotating
were
around, and
changing
whose turn is it
schools.
supposed to be
we were
now?
at Oak Grove last year.
I think it's supposed to be Green Street's turn,
Is it
isn't
Green
it?
Street? Okay,
So let's move it to that.
okay, let's make
Okay.
sure that
Aren't you glad you asked?
that's well publicized.
Yes. Is that something that we have to do a motion about, or we just say it?
We can just say it.
Okay.
Yeah. And make sure it gets in the paper. And then you'll
Yes.
get it
And
on Facebook.
what about childcare, Lyle? Because we haven't arranged anything for
also-
that.
Yes. Oh, you're right, we just did it.
We
for
only
the
did it for the other
15th.
one.
We did not do it
Yes.
for the.
So can you take care of that?
Well,
Didn't you do that?
my way of taking
You
care of
gave
it
it to-
is, Lyle, please hire some people to do this.
Oh, gosh, okay, I'll work on
Ask
it
Tom,
again.
Just
ask
send
Tom
out
Green.
one more email and see if anybody, and maybe Maya's friend, remember there was somebody that was like, ooh, I'm interested in doing
Yeah.
something, so maybe
We'll see
we can
if I
see if we
can
can get them appropriately credentialed in time for the thing.
Yeah, 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 that takes an unbelievable
Thank you.
Okay, are we finished now? Is that it?
Yes.
You say
Okay,
that?
so can,
Okay, do we adjourn before we go into
Nope.
executive
No.
session?
No, we
Okay.
But we have to.
move to do
We
a
have to,
Make that motion of
Yep.
the session. I don't have the wording. Does somebody have that?
I've got it almost memorized, but I'll take the cheat sheet if you've got one. I thought I had one.
Got how many work plans here?
this is just, there it is. What's going on? Is it for April? There it is.
And you have to sign this. And it's to discuss
It's a family situation, and we, by discussing it, we're gonna identify students specifically, so it's ESA 313.
dismissal
I think
action.
it's academic records.
So I move that we enter executive session consistent with section 313 of 1 DSA Vermont statutes, chapter 5. We're going into executive session to consider academic records or suspension or discipline of students. No decisions will be made. We will, no statements for the press will be made at the end, and we will adjourn immediately after executive session.
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.